So I would have nothing personal that I could share. You know, I'm sort of relegated to a brick wall, and you know, I guess that's probably appropriate. However, I could pretend I have things that are as impressive. I don't. But let me say that there are a couple of similar things that hang in my office. You know, one of those is I have a photo of one of my personal heroes, and it's a photo from the moment in the Liston Ali fight
Yeah.
when Liston chooses not to come back into the fight. And it was shot. There's a photo of Ali standing over Liston, and many people know it as the most famous photo in sports.
Right.
You've probably all seen it. It's the one where Ali's arm is cocked and he's saying, "Come on, come on." But actually, there's another photo shot by the same photographer. He hung a camera in the rafters of the stadium, of the arena, and it shoots from down up. It shoots downward, and you can see Ali with standing over Howard Bingham and Angelo Dundee. You know, for me, Ali growing up was a hero. And it's not because, I mean, certainly the boxing was exciting and certainly he was an amazingly beautiful man, but it was really his willingness to speak truth to power, particularly around his stance around choosing to have conscientious objector status because of his religious beliefs as a member of as a Muslim. So for me, that was just very powerful. Now, you know, part of your background is you're military. You know, my father was actually a Vietnam War vet, and my father actually was serving at the time that Ali was, in fact, making his stance. And, you know, growing up, I remember asking my dad, you know, how do you feel about this Ali thing? Now, I was a kid, but I could at least figure out what was going on with the Ali thing. And my dad said he entirely admired Ali. For me, he just was such a great hero. In the early 2000s, I had a chance to meet him at an event in New York City. And it was great. There was an event and he was there, and my wife and I were there, and he was there with his handlers. And we just walked up, and everybody was hanging back, and we walked up and we talked to him. And it was just amazing. Certainly he was delayed, but it was amazing because he said, at one point he leaned into me and he said, you know, all these people are here for me and it's an amazing thing. But he said, you know, I still know and never forget that I'm the Negro boy from Louisville, Kentucky. And so that hangs in my office. That's one thing. And then the other thing that hangs in my office, again, I wish I could do the same, is my grandfather's diploma from the University of Nebraska. It's really tiny. It's no bigger than this. It says something, by the way, that over time, diplomas got bigger and bigger and bigger, and the UVA diploma is huge. But my grandfather's diploma hangs there because occasionally it's a little like your I am a man sign. People come in and it's small, so they have to lean in to see it. And it says Robert L. Fairchild on it. And it says 1923. And when they see it, one of the things they become aware of is that Black people went to college in Nebraska and were able to do that in the 1920s. But we couldn't go to college at the University of Virginia until 1970. So it's a little subtle way of saying you're behind.
Similar thing with my grandfather, who he had a PhD that he got from University of Wisconsin-Madison, and I think that was in the 40s. His part of there's a flag that he was in the Army in World War II, and his flag they gave when he died is in here. And he was a professor at Notre Dame, and he was actually the first African American professor at Notre Dame on the Notre Dame faculty. His chair that they gave him at retirement usually sits in my office. But I like to remind people that there's a legacy here that I'm trying to live up to. But people have been going to college. Black folks been going to college for many years.
That's
His
right.
father, my great grandfather, went to
That's
college
right.
as well. So absolutely, you have to let people know when they come into the space. This is who you're dealing with. When you were talking about the Ali thing in the at Vietnam and how your dad felt about it, that reminded me of Colin Kaepernick.
Of
It's not the
course.
same thing, but when he's took the knee, and people say, well, he's offending people who serve.
That's right.
And I said to myself, well, I serve. I'm in the Army Reserve, and I'm not offended. Uh, I I would stand because I'm a member of the Army, and that's something that I've signed up to do. But I'm fighting, if you can call it fighting, what I'm doing, but I'm serving to defend this person's right to speak his mind and bring attention to the issue. And he was bringing attention to the issue of police brutality, and Ali
Correct.
was bringing attention to the issue of, you want us to go over there and fight this war of questionable legitimacy, and you don't do anything for us here in the United States. It's just
That's
so
right.
much hypocrisy. So it's a tradition of protest. I see Kaepernick linking back to Ali, as I'm sure
I
he
think a
rep-
lot of people do. And I think to think that there was this period where Ali was vilified in the United States and then went on to become the person I think people of our vintage know him to be. The important question is who's with him when he's being vilified?
right.
That always becomes the interesting thing. So education then for you, Spence, has been something that's been a part of your family for generations, that and mine as well. When you think about education, what were the messages you received about what it would do, what it wouldn't do, what was important, what wasn't?
It was presented to me as non-negotiable. I mean, I had to go on and get higher education. That's what my mother's side had done. My father was first generation. His parents did not. Neither of them went to college. Um, but he saw it as the path to upward mobility because his mother, my grandmother, she was a domestic of the kind depicted in the movie The Help. That level of service. Her husband, my grandfather, died before I was born, and she was blind, my grandmother, and she ended up, working that kind of work in South Carolina, segregated South, but providing an education to my father where he's able to go on to Clark College. Clark College, and as an interesting aside, he didn't go to Morehouse because Clark College not only gave him a full scholarship, but gave him a stipend. And Morehouse gave him a full scholarship, not a stipend. And so Clark College won the day because my father had absolutely no money. But to then be able to go from Clark College to Harvard Law School, and then he went on to join the Army and be a prosecutor for the government, and then become a federal judge appointed by Ronald Reagan. And so that